Every yard, every hit, every second. It's earned out here. This game demands more than just skill. It demands fuel. The right fuel. Because out here, it's not just about how hard you work. It's about how long you keep going. When the game gets real, drink Bottle Still.
Welcome in to the Week 2 OUA season recap. Labor Day weekend, so we had a ton of Canadian football from CFL on CJ and U Sports, which is where we're going to look at mainly the OUA. And Connor, we had a good stretch of games, none more anticipated, I think, than Guelph going to London to play the Western Mustangs. It was our marquee matchup. I thought it was going to live up to the hype after the first quarter, and we're going to start here because that second quarter was just a flurry of Western Mustangs scores, and it went from a really close game where I think it was 3-3 at the end of the first quarter to a 31-10 halftime lead for the Mustangs.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. It was the first quarter there ended 10-3. And then, like you said, just a flurry of purple and silver. And I think that second quarter is really what did in Guelph in this one, because they had an opportunity. They were back in this ball game. They scored early to make it 17-10 at this point in the second quarter after Western goes up 17-3. And then from there, the second half ends 31-10. And Western is one of these teams, and we've seen this year in, year out. You cannot give them opportunities. You cannot let them finish drives like this. And this is exactly what happens, because we go into the third quarter, Western gets the ball, and they make it 38-10 really, really quick. And that's just, for me, where the wheels fell off the bus. Guelph, man, 600 yards of total offense in this one. They out-offensed, and I know I used this not correct term last week as well, but they out-offensed Western in this one. They just couldn't find the end zone. And like we were talking about off air, we're going to get to this in this breakdown. Special teams was a little bit tough for the Guelph Griffins in this one as well.
Yeah, and talking about Western and giving them these chances, I left Richardson Stadium last week saying that was the worst game Western's going to play all year, and they got away with a win. It was an overtime, it was dramatic, but that was the worst football game they were going to play, from the disorganized, from the sloppiness, from the penalties. And sure enough, Western came out and made you pay for every small mistake. Oh, you're going to kick a field goal off an upright from the 10-yard line? Yeah, that's great. We're going to go down and we're going to put up more points. Oh, you're going to try to punt the ball, and your whole field side of your pro team is going to leave the line of scrimmage early. Well, guess what? We're going to have 3 extra guys attacking from that angle, and the freshman punter is just going to have to eat this as he gets demolished with a punt block. Couple kickoffs out of bounds, just some little errors that compound. And, right after they block the punt, next play, they throw the long touchdown. And later in the game, Guelph is marching with Marshall McRae, and we'll talk about the Abood McRae situation next, I'm guessing. But, you get the kickoff after allowing the touchdown, and Guelph seems to have all the momentum. Well, what do is Ethan Dalby, 85 yards, just rips off a touchdown run. And we'll talk about kind of the Abood McRae situation now before we talk about how Western really attacked this Guelph defense.
Yeah, these tandem of quarterbacks, man, they are electric. They're fun to watch, and they are deadly. Tristan Abood goes 16 of 23 for 231 yards. He did get pulled in this game, but Marshall McRae, man, what a ball game for him. Throws 80 through the air, and he was the leading rusher for his team in this one, 130 on the ground, 2 touchdowns. They are dynamic. They are electric. They just need to find more ways to hit the end zone. And like we were saying earlier with the special teams, I think you need to clean up the third phase of the football game here.
Yeah, and for those that didn't watch the game, Abood was playing every snap until about a couple minutes left in the second quarter. He scrambled out, ran for a few yards, kind of got popped going out of bounds, and finished the drive. And then almost immediately, the next drive, Marshall McRae came in. And they were already down by a couple scores, but then McCray stayed in after the half, and Aboud we didn't see for the rest of the game. And I'm not too sure if it was the hit, if it was just the fact they were down by so much, but to see both of these quarterbacks play as well as they can. And when we've talked to Coach Soraya the last couple of years, he said, like, we have two elite starting quarterbacks that are capable of leading this offense. We just get to decide who and when and how. And to me, Connor, I think it has to be a mixed bag going forward. You know, Aboud is clearly the like we mentioned last week, the caliber quarterback throwing the ball, and he's elite and dynamic, and he can still move in his own right. But Marshall McCray is just such a freak athlete that you have to put him on the field and get him in those situations where, you know, it's not just Marshall's coming in, we're going to run the ball. But like we saw, Marshall can still stretch the field with his arm. It's not as accurate or as consistent as Tristan Aboud, but he can still be a threat down the field, but you have to account for him rushing the ball. And if you don't, he's going to make you pay. If you're not containing well, he's going to make you pay. Like Western was spying him with a young kid in Jackson McKay, who is an elite track and field athlete, Connor. I'm pretty sure I heard it in the broadcast that he has a junior national decathlon record. Like he is an elite all-around athlete. And he was struggling to pace with Marshall McCray on the field.
Yeah, man, he's a dynamic playmaker for this offense. The other guy I want to touch on quickly before we flip over to the Western Mustangs here in this one, Isaiah Smith. I thought he had a darn ball game in this one too. 88 on the ground, 80 through the air, accounted for 2 touchdowns in his own right. But that was really it. Aside from McCray and Isaiah Smith, I mean, when you have two guys going for combined 200 some odd yards, 218 yards, I guess, to be very specific on this one. You don't need much of your other guys to start doing stuff, but this is a little bit of a differentiation from what we saw in the rushing attack last year with the Griffins, right? They had 3-4 running backs that could really do it all for them. And in this one, it really felt like it was a little one-dimensional, I want to say. It was the Isaiah Smith show. It was the Marshall McCray show. And on the ground, I feel like they just didn't really attack the way we're used to seeing them.
No, and credit to Guelph, because usually when you get down by, let's face it, 28 points at one point, you know, a lot of it is just, okay, we got to throw to get back in this. And they kept to their identity of, we're going to run the ball. We know what we can do. We know how athletic we can be doing this, and still take chunk yardage and still take big scores and keep the game interesting. Like Western at no point was able to put in their backups for winning by 20 points. There was no chance where they were thinking, okay, backups are in. I guess we gave up a touchdown here. No, it was starters till the end, and they had to, because of Guelph's pressure and Guelph's need. But 2 weeks in a row, Guelph just has that one quarter. Last week it was the first quarter. This week it's the second quarter, where they just don't quite put it all together, and it kills them. And they're 0-2 despite playing 2 really strong games offensively and playing 2 of the top teams, the 2 teams that played for the Yates Cup last year, to kick off their season. So Guelph 0-2, but a damn good looking 0-2 if there was ever such a thing.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's tough to say that it's a good looking team when they do start 0-2, but man, I do think that if Guelph starts to clean these things up, if they really start to clean up some of the little mistakes that they've been making, they are going to be a dangerous team here down the stretch. Now let's talk about these Western Mustangs. And yeah, we can talk about the almost 250 yards that Evan Hillock threw, and he was kind of darting the ball. But I want to talk about Jérôme Rancourt, because this is a special player, a special playmaker. And he is, to me, one of the guys that drives this ship. He had 2 touchdowns in this one. He had that long, almost 25-yard run. He gets down at the 1. He punches it in himself. But Jérôme Rancourt, man, when you have a guy like that on your team, it just does so much. Whether it's Hillock or Rancourt back there controlling the offense, you know good things are going to happen.
I think for me, the thing with Jérôme Rancourt that is so exciting is Western wants to run the football. We always know that. Everybody in the province of Ontario that follows university football knows that the Western Mustangs run the damn ball. When Jérôme Rancourt comes in, there's like an extra jolt of excitement that this offensive line and this running back room and the H-backs all kind of get. And I don't know if it's just the fact that Jérôme can run himself like he showed this week and last week, but also like they just want to carry the ball. And when he comes in, yeah, he can throw the ball. We saw a couple really nice throws last week, but Connor, when he's in, even as a tight end, and he's catching passes in the flats, like when he gets the ball in his hands, guys are excited for him. He kind of brings that energy to this team. And I don't know. I feel like I'm watching Brad Sinopoli at the Red Blacks, where it's a quarterback who's being used at receiver and he's making a lot of plays underneath. It's exciting. It's certainly a weapon. And Evan Hillock, for exiting last week with the arm and the shoulder sling, came out in a full brace, looked great. Didn't take many hits, didn't put himself in risky situations, just kind of delivered the ball where it needed to on a lot of crossing routes. Buying a lot of time, throwing the ball downfield when he had a lot of protection. So very good for Evan Hillock to be able to kind of play despite exiting last week. But this team, Connor, in Western, they attacked Guelph's defense. And they went right at two guys I really noticed in particular. One was the true freshman in Andre Thompson. They almost said, like, okay, we're going to put our CFL offensive lineman in front of you and see if you can handle it. And the other one they did was they ran stretch zone at this 3-4 defense. You know, you want to get some speed and slice through with the style that Guelph plays, but those outside linebackers like Eunice Larry were getting one-on-one blocks with a guy like Eric Anderson. That's a favorable matchup for Western. And the running backs certainly made them pay with a couple gash yardage. I think Kelly had a really long one. Dolby had his 85-yarder. These guys made you pay on the edge and said, if you want to play speed, play speed. We're going to beat you to that corner with our size and then make a cut from there and go. So it took a lot of blocking from receivers. I think Dasani McIntosh had a key block and Missouri had a key block on the Dolby run. It was a good group effort, but they attacked very certain pieces of this Guelph defense, and Guelph held on as much as they could, but being on the field for a lot of snaps and having those guys attack down after down after down certainly wore them out over the long run.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think you're 100% right there. And the last thing I want to say about this Western team before we move on, because we still do have a bunch of other exciting games to get to. Western is getting into these shootout type wins. I want to see their defense shore it up a little bit more. And we were texting about this a little bit off air and how sustainable are these shootout wins going to be? We saw it last week. They get into a shootout with Queens. They win it in overtime. We see it this week. You know, they put up a ton of points against Guelph. And if not for a bad second quarter, I think this game might have been a little bit closer, but it's Western. We know who they are. But this year, they don't seem to have that defensive intensity yet as they did in years past. And if you're going to keep getting into shootout situations, how sustainable is that going to be for the purple and silver?
I think the intensity piece is kind of like it's there. We're just not seeing it because there's so many of these scores going up and going and going and going. Like Maxwell Muhldorfer has a ton of energy. Soren Holschmidt has a ton of energy and intensity. And you see that when they're attacking and getting off the ball. But it almost feels like the secondary is trying to redefine themselves. You know, you have Dan Valenti for so long, then you have Jackson Finley for so long. And they're just trying to reestablish who they are as this kind of new group. And I know that there's guys like Richard Dedu before that have been there for 4 or 5 years, but they're almost trying to reestablish who they are in this linebacking core that's new with a guy like Ethan Martin. And I just think that this team, the front four knows who they are, but the rest of the guys, there's a lot of new pieces, and they're slowly putting it together. They make a lot of plays. They're getting where they need to, but it'll come piece by piece, and they get another home game against Ottawa this upcoming week to kind of build on that as we go.
All right, let's move on. We have we had one last week in the overtime game, the quadruple overtime game with Queens Western. We have another awesome overtime finish. The Toronto Varsity Blues, the Waterloo Warriors. We said we wanted more points out of Waterloo. Wade, we got it. 26 on the board. Toronto with seemingly no time left on the clock, marches the field, throws a freaking, well, they don't march the field, but they throw a freaking
9 seconds left. Yeah.
9 seconds left. They throw a bomb to get this thing to 23-20. Waterloo goes, hold on, we got a guy. And Evan Astolfo absolutely nails a 57-yarder between the uprights, dead down the middle to make this thing 23-23. We go in overtime, and he hits a 21-yarder to push his team over the edge and get their first win of the season, 26-23. Wow, was this an electric game?
It was, and it starts a bit earlier in the game. Nick Orr actually went out, kind of got taken off, I believe, a head injury. But Nolan Caban came in, and it's not like he has not played football at this level. So they start to really work it and work the run game and get down the field. To me, when Scott Barnett threw that touchdown pass to Chris Oseen, everybody at varsity went, "Oh my God, we did it." And then the kickoff goes out of bounds, and you go, "Hold on, maybe we don't have it." And when, Waterloo throws their first pass, it just kind of gets around midfield or around that 50-yard spot. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like, maybe they are setting up a long throw. And they walk out the field goal team. And I'm thinking to myself, are they actually just going to try this because they can't throw the ball that far? Or are they trying it because they think they can actually hit a 57-yarder? And we, the two of us, coached this summer and played a game against Astolfo. And we watched Burlington, the team he played for, kick field goals from anywhere on the field because they just didn't have a punter as a team. But he's such a good kicker that it worked. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe he does have it. And he kicks the field goal, and from the TV angle, you couldn't really tell. They initially thought he was short, and then the refs put up their arms and said he made it. And Connor, it felt as soon as that ball went over the uprights that it was just not the night for the Blues. And they come out in overtime, muck the snap on the first down. Scott Barnett still manages to throw it away, save the negative play. Second down, wide open receiver, 15-yard gain, goes through his arms as he's waiting to fair catch the ball on the sidelines for a conversion. And then Sam Henke misses the field goal, and you just go, well, if you just hit a 57-yarder, a 42 or in is going to be a piece of cake for him. Just get him any yardage you can and kick the damn thing. Waterloo played a very tough game. The adjustments at halftime made the world of a difference, even with a second string quarterback in. And I don't want to say backup because, Caban has played a ton of snaps in the OUA. Or Springer, Miller, Caban. Any combination of those four in the backfield are going to be tough. And when you have Coach Bertoya running the ball like they did, it was a well-designed adjustment at halftime.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that Waterloo did really well in this one that I really appreciated was they got seemingly everybody involved. Roy Vanderveen goes 10 carries. Anthony Miller gets 10 carries. In the receiving game, Evan Basiliga is getting involved. Nico Gennady is getting touches. They got 45 yards, 30 yards from a couple other receivers. And they were just mixed. It was a mixed bag. Everybody's contributing. Everybody's getting involved. And it really turned into positive outcomes for these Waterloo Warriors. And again, I'm going to harp on this because it's something that we said last week. We wanted to see more scoring drives, more finishing plays, more points on the board. And darn it if they didn't go out and do that. And in the third quarter, this was awesome. They come out the second half and they blank the Varsity Blues in the third quarter, helps them get set up. They played great defense in that fourth quarter, aside from, a hell of a throw from Barnett. And man, I am just very impressed with Waterloo flushing last week and saying we're on to Toronto, and they go out and they get their first win of the season on the road too.
Yeah, very good to see. And now Toronto goes into the Red and Blue Bowl 1-1, same record as York. And really, if you want to try and get a crack at the postseason, you're going to have to get some of these wins against teams that are 500 or below. So we'll move on now. Laurier, Windsor, the other 7:00 night game on Saturday. Connor, Windsor's defense played 1 and 4/5 of shutout football, it seemed, in that second half. It's just they had already given up 30 points to Cal Wither and co, and the offense couldn't really catch up. To me, this one was more of a, okay, the defense is going to step up. Can we get some assistance? And Laurier's defense, to their credit, just said, no, you're not getting any help. We're not allowing scores. We're not allowing these big plays. Go ahead, punt the ball, and give us the ball back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I thought Laurier's defense played absolutely lights out in this game. They accounted for 4 sacks in this one. They had some PBUs. They had an INT, a great INT in this one. Laurier's defense, as impressive as their offense is, and we know Ethan Jordan is still a darn good football player. We know Cal Wither is coming into his own as an OUA quarterback, but Laurier's defense really forced the issue for this one in me and took away a lot of Windsor's identity.
Yeah, and conversely, I felt like Windsor did the same with Laurier after the broken play where Ryan Hughes was all alone to start the third quarter. Cal Wither, I think, has his favorite guy, and as nice as it is to throw to Ethan Jordan and Laomi Uchitabayo and all these talented receivers like Jace Atkinson, Ryan Hughes showed something last year in the playoffs, and it felt like, oh my God, he's for real. And this year to start the season, him and Cal Wither have a connection, and it's going to be on display. They're going to find ways to get him the ball. Because you can't double team him, they're always going to be able to get him the ball some way, somehow. He can beat man coverage. He can sit in zones. He can take the top off of defense. I'm expecting a big season from Ryan Hughes. And for Cal Wither, you know, I put this out off the CFP page, showing a little Taylor Elgersma, lowering the shoulder on the rushing touchdown. Just so happens Taylor was on the sidelines there, so I don't know if it was rubbing off on Cal Wither as much as Cal just wanting to, you know, put his stamp on a home opener. But Laurier looked great defensively all game long. The offense kind of sputtered after that big play, but when you're up 21 points, Connor, do you really need much more?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. When you're playing that well as a team, when you're playing that well defensively, what more can you ask for as a coach from those Laurier? Like, exactly. And
be safe,
I want to
clock.
100%, 100%. But I want to go back to Windsor here quickly before I move on, because I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this is a little bit of the Waterloo discussion that we had last week, right? Like when your defense plays so well, when they're doing things so right, you need that support from your offense. And they totaled 9 points in this one, all off the leg of Brady Lister. But I really want to see them start attacking offensively, finishing these drives, finding points in the red zone. It's football. You need to find the end zone if you want to win these games. And they got the defensive help that they really needed. They just could not score the ball.
Yeah, and for Windsor early on, you know, a couple dropped interceptions really, you know, hurt them because they ended up resulting in Laurier points. But this offense that seems to want to really stretch you horizontally to then open up some vertical rushing lanes for Wavy Mumbo and the running back room, you know, it works until it doesn't. And when teams start to figure out the slices and bumping across or tracking whatever they decide to do, you know, that's where this offense needs to then have okay, if they track this well, what are we going to do? Because we can't just rely on zone slices and slips and inside zone straight up to really be the bulk of our offense. Was their first game of the year, so there are some of those first game pieces that you need to kind of solve, but I was glad to see the defense for Windsor show up again, because when you lose a guy like Devin Verisuk, it's a tough ask to replace, but they did a good job in that second half.
No, they certainly did. They certainly did. But wait, let's move on. Let's go to the nation's capital. The Ottawa GGs hosting the York Lions. We were very curious to see how York was going to follow up that first win of the season, that home opening win. But man, Ottawa was dominant in this one, 39-17 final, and it just felt defensively, Ottawa did everything that they needed to do to force York into a hole early. It was a 20-3 first half for those GGs, taking away everything that York seemingly liked to do last week, and they couldn't get the plane off the ground in this one, it felt like.
No, and credit to Riley Hildebrandt and co up front, making it extremely uncomfortable for Keegan Hall. Danny Briere, though, Connor, we got to talk about this block punt, scoop, and score, because that was the backbreaker. There was a couple seconds left until halftime. It's not that big of a deficit for York. They go into the half thinking, you know what, we can do this. We're a score down. And, as they lined up to punt, I'm sitting here thinking, trying to put myself in those situations going, you got to come after this. Either that or you've got to have one heck of a return setup to try and put yourselves in position to get a strike or to get, a field goal opportunity. So what's easier for me? Well, heck, if we can block a punt or we can alter how you kick the ball and maybe force a shank, that's way easier than setting up a big return. Let's go for it. And Briere, off the hands, scoops it himself, scores it into that east end zone at Lee's Field. But Connor, that was the turning point, because from there, the commentators, and credit to them, said that York's not putting their head down. They're not hanging their head on that. But you could feel the energy in the stadium shift to the GGs. And, Asselin, Jansen, they kept doing what they're going to do all season long, but it certainly felt like a different York team after the big, play by Briere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Calling it the turning point is 100% correct in this one. I totally agree there. That was the backbreaker, like you're saying. But I do want to talk about Josh Jansen in this one a little bit, because, Wade, he looked like a technician out there. He was doing all the things right, putting the balls in spots for his guys to go make plays. It resulted in 2 passing touchdowns for him. But when you have a guy like this, when you have a guy like Jansen that it just is patient, is calm, is poised back there, and can dot the ball, can get the ball to where it needs to go, it results in these big type of wins. A near 40-point win for the GGs, putting themselves in positions to go score the ball. And almost just shy of 450 yards of offense for these GGs. It was a treat for me to watch.
Yeah, and Connor, I will point out, we talked about the 30-touch rule for Charles Asselin. They are being extremely picky when Asselin is touching the ball here. Again, 12 carries, no receptions, and only a couple kickoff returns. He's not touching the ball this much early in the season. They are saving it for when the weather gets colder and they start to really push it in the run game. He is going to be fresh. This GG team, and we always joke like, oh, first horse out of the gate, Ottawa usually goes like 4-0 and 0-4. They're setting themselves up to have the horses ready to run at the end of this season. And it's exciting. It's a good thing to watch.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think that they're maybe saving his legs a little bit, like you're saying, but I think they've also found a great 1-2 punch. It feels like in that backfield with a guy like Kamara, who gets 9 touches, goes 80 yards for his own, they don't need to necessarily rely on Charles to get those 30 touches, because now they have 2 backs, 2 very powerful backs to hit the holes, to run hard, to wear down those defenses. So I like how they've been conservative but still aggressive in that 1-2 punch to start the season.
All right, we got one last game here, Connor. Queens McMaster. This one, much like a couple of the other games we saw this week, a big flurry of points in the second quarter kind of stretches it out. And it starts with Vreek hitting Nathan Falcone on a deep ball that was dropped in a bucket. We talked about Queens and this RPO offense is going to open up rushing lanes. Well, Jared Cesare said, yes, it is. And he went for $115 on McMaster. 8 yards a pop, Carner, for the veteran running back.
He's not going anywhere. Has not gone anywhere. Boy, oh boy, did he look fantastic in this game. He was running the ball hard, 8.2 yards a carry. And when you're getting that kind of production, seemingly every time you turn around and hand the ball off, well, how easy, especially if those are first down runs, how easy is it for a guy like Vreekin on a 2nd and 2 to be like, okay, I can go find my guys. I can go find a Falcone. I can go find an Ashby Jacobs. I can go find a Cedric Smith if I need to. It just makes your job, if you're Alex Vreekin, that much easier to do.
Yeah, and this week, we don't see as much Russell Weir, but we see a lot more Jack Ashby Jacobs, who's playing out wide. So I think Queens is in a very good spot with the weapons that they have and the style that they're choosing to play in, and really just letting Alex Vreekin be the quarterback. It's no more 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It is, we have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. We are going to let him be the guy. And he was. 17 of 24, 250, 2 touchdowns, very strong showing for the vet. To me, though, Connor, this game was centered around the Queens defensive line. And when you look at the box score, it's not going to look great. Okay, not many of them have a ton of tackles, but every single time McMaster dropped back to pass, whether it was Capella, whether it was Bennett, whether it was Ollie Jackson, Eric Johnson, Garang, one of these guys was putting pressure on Thelman and made him uncomfortable. He did not look like he had a foot to throw from at all this game. And 14 completions, 100 yards and change, couple scrambles, couple runs, but this McMaster offensive line was swarmed from the first start. And, if you're going to play with a defensive end like Ollie Jackson, who's not as big or as physically dominant as a guy like Salas Hubert, when you play against an offensive line that is not physically dominant like Western's is with Eric Anderson, that's a nightmare matchup because you have no answer to him. You can't maul him. You're not going to outsize him that badly. He's going to outspeed you on every snap. And whether he has to get to the point of attack in the run game, he's going to beat you to the spot and post up. Then when it's all of a sudden pass, watch out because he's going to turn it loose. And the result was pretty evident this last week.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And talking about this D line and the things that they were able to do, we spoke to Justin Pace about this at the start of the season, right? And when you have a front that's able to do this, able to create pressure, it really opens up the creativity on the defense, or it really opens up the creativity behind the defensive line for a coordinator, right? And Pace was all over the field in this game. 10 tackles, 10 total tackles, 8 solo. He is a star in the making. He is already a star, in the OUA, but boy, oh boy, he had a great game as well, I thought. And that was credit to the way that the Queens defensive line played, like you're saying.
Yeah, and you know what? 2 games in a row, Keegan Vanek gets picked. So I'm sure Queens is quite thrilled to be back in the win column. This team looked like, they were not content with the way last week went. They knew they left a lot on the field, and they're going to set themselves up for a chance to avenge that at some point this year. It started this week with McMaster and getting back to 500. Now, they have a tough task with Laurier, but I think that they're ready for it. It's at home. It's Friday night lights. It's exciting to see. I can't wait to see how this game goes.
Yeah, we can't spoil that one too much because we still do have a preview episode coming out later this week. So we will get to those games coming up. We will talk about that Laurier Queens matchup. Certainly, Wade, this was a great weekend of football. I think this is a good place to kind of wrap up our recap episode. As always, make sure you are drinking BioSteel. Stay hydrated, get right, get your body right. BioSteel, provider of hydration for the OUA.